Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see it. And in today's episode, the topic is, can the Clippers steal Game 1 on the road today? So that's the topic I'm going to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, make sure you go ahead and check out Dreamerspro Max, a place where you can go and start basketball discussions, chat live during games, especially during these playoffs, and so many cool things. If you guys are interested in that, be sure to check that out. We have that linked in the description below. We will be chatting today during the playoffs as well. And also make sure you guys go ahead and click the join button to join the channel to receive loyalty badges from our channel. So let's get into it. So anyway, the Western Conference Finals are finally here. I saw the game last night between, what was it, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Brooklyn Nets. It was a crazy game, man. And listen, the Bucks had so many opportunities to win that game, but I just feel like the Bucks were a bit challenged offensively. I think late in games when you have to dump the ball into Giannis, who is not a very polished offensive player. He's really good at getting to the basket, but he doesn't have a reliable mid-range. He's not a reliable free throw shooter. I felt like they had some challenges scoring against that team late in the game, not because the Brooklyn Nets were playing great defense. It's just because I just feel like the Milwaukee Bucks, although they were the #1 scoring team in the NBA in the regular season, I just feel like they had some difficulty scoring late in the game. They weren't really moving the ball very well. Drew Holiday wasn't really. I think he played bad pretty much for the whole game, and I just think they got lucky. And I think that game came down to who made the last few shots. I think the Milwaukee Bucks made one or two field goals in overtime. So it was a pretty sloppy game to watch in the end. I think Kevin Durant gave it everything that he could. He put forward a masterful performance, but you know, he basically had to put that team on his back, and he pretty much did every single thing. James Harden was really a no-show out there, not really a factor, and Kyrie Irving didn't play. So it was a tough loss for the Brooklyn Nets, but I think ultimately the thing that ultimately derailed this team at the end was just injuries. These playoffs, they lost a very good player in Kyrie Irving, and you know, KD was just basically out there, and I think James Harden was basically a decoy in that game. So I saw that game was a disappointing ending, but congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks for making it back to the Western Conference Finals, and let's see who's going to be the winner between the Bucks and the Sixers or the Atlanta Hawks. So we're going to see how that goes. But anyway, to this series now. So the Clippers again finally make it to their first Western Conference Finals in over 50 years, the first time they've ever done it. So it's a very exciting moment for this organization. And going into the playoffs, I thought that this could possibly be one of the Western Conference Finals matchups that we could possibly see. I thought for sure it would be one of the most entertaining matchups we can see in the playoffs, especially in the Western Conference. I think the top two matchups I think most fans wanted to see would either be the Clippers and the Lakers, or the Clippers versus the Phoenix Suns. I think is going to be the most intriguing one, given the fact of the back and forth that these two teams kind of had. A lot of those players like Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and these guys kind of having a back and forth kind of beef with Paul George. That's only with Paul George, really. Nobody talks trash to Kawhi Leonard. They know better, so they never really talk trash to him. But these two teams have matched up this time this season 3 times, and it was very entertaining. Although the Clippers won 2 of those 3 meetings, and then they ultimately lost the last one. But in the last meeting that the Clippers played against the Phoenix Suns, Kawhi Leonard did not play. Now, obviously, that's going to be a factor because going into this series, Kawhi Leonard will not be available tonight. Kawhi Leonard will not be available for Game 1, and he will not be available for Game 2. However, I do think he will be available. This is just my theory. I think you're probably looking at Game 3, Game 4, depending on how those first 2 games go. I think he will. I think he will make a appearance in this series. This is just my opinion. Now, there's another big news for the Phoenix Suns, which is Chris Paul is not going to be available for Game 1. That's huge news due to COVID protocols. He's going to be in the COVID protocol situation, so it's going to cause him to miss Game 1, which is going to be a major factor going into this game, because now it kind of levels the playing field, right? The Phoenix Suns are not going to be at full strength, and the Clippers are not going to be at full strength. They're going to be without their best player, and I think the Phoenix Suns are going to be without their best ball handler and their leader for sure. So it kind of levels the playing field. So I think going into this game, we're just focusing on Game 1 here, I think is going to be the classic story of rest versus rust. We saw the same thing to start off the Western Conference semifinals between the Utah Jazz and the Clippers. Why? Because the Clippers are gone. They just finished playing a 7-game series, a very daunting 7-game series against the Dallas Mavericks, who now are in complete disarray as an organization, with Carlisle stepping down and Luka Doncic not being happy. So it's a mess there. But anyway, it was a very long and tedious series for the Clippers, and they went into game 1 in Utah, and I think they had a lot of adrenaline, but they ultimately, I think they were just, physically spent and probably emotionally spent getting out of that first round series. And I think we're going to see a similar thing here. I think rest is going to play a lack of rest is going to play a little bit of a role here. And the Phoenix Suns, I think they've been off for the last 4 or 5 days or so. They haven't played some games in quite some time. So I think that's going to definitely play a factor. Maybe the Phoenix Suns come out a little rusty. We did see that in game 1 with the Utah Jazz when they played against the Clippers. So there was definitely some rust there. But I think in the second half of that game, the Utah Jazz were able to sort of get their legs and get their rhythm back. So that was one thing to see. I think that going into this game, there'll be a lot of emotions. I think the Clippers, though, however, will have a rhythm because they've been playing every other night, pretty much for the last, I would say, 2 weeks or so. They've been playing every other night. So the Clippers are going to be in a rhythm. Obviously, you have to factor in that, travel. Travel is definitely going to play a factor. Traveling to another city, kind of, getting into a new routine, so to speak. You're in a new city, a new place. So obviously that may take a toll on the team somewhat. But I think the Clippers will go into this game with a rhythm. Now, generally, I don't like to make predictions going into these games because, first of all, I don't know what lineups these teams are going to use. Given the fact that Chris Paul is not going to be available for game 1, I don't know who's going to be their starting point guard. I have a feeling the Clippers are still going to start with the same rotations that they had in the last 2 games with Paul George, Terrence Mann, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris Sr., Nicholas Batum. I think they're going to start that way. But for the Phoenix Suns, I don't know yet. I don't know who the person is going to be that's going to replace Chris Paul in the starting lineup. So that's one of the things. Another thing is we got to keep an eye on the whole Chris Paul and Rajon Rondo kind of thing. There's another beef there happening on the court, right? Because we all know that Rondo has a public disdain for Chris Paul. I think these two guys don't like each other. So we got to see, is Rajon Rondo going to make an appearance in this series? You also got to ask the question, what players are the Clippers going to be playing in this series, right? Are they going to kind of stick with the same group that they had in the last series, or are other players going to get more run? Is DeMarcus Cousins going to get more minutes? Is Rajon Rondo going to get more minutes? It's something that is really, you got to wait and see, right? That's why going into game ones, there's so many variables that you got to take into consideration. You don't really know which way a series is going to swing. Then you had the Devin Booker versus Paul George matchup, which is something I am very, 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 very excited to see, given the fact that I think these two guys don't like each other. And I think it's going to be a treat for us fans to see these guys get matched up, against one another. To see Devin Booker and Paul George go at it, I think is going to be very, very, very interesting. So many things to look for. And as I said, we don't know when Kawhi Leonard will ultimately make his return. I do think he will come, but I don't know when, and for sure he's not going to come in game 1 or game 2, which means that he's going to have some days of additional rest. I said this in the live that we did yesterday. Him not playing on Sunday and him not playing on Tuesday means he could possibly make a return on Thursday or next week Saturday, which gives him about 2 weeks to kind of lick his wounds and kind of get himself back on the court. I heard Ty Lue said that Kawhi Leonard was back in LA. He did not travel with the team. He was there getting treatment. I did see him in the end of the locker room in some of the videos that the Clippers released. He was there cheering, unassisted, without crutches or anything like this. So maybe Kawhi Leonard will make a comeback, and I think he probably will. As I said, I don't like to make predictions going into series without even watching. I like to see 1 or 2 games. Reason is because in game 1, there's so many things you don't know. What lineups, what strategy, and all of these different things. You got to see what works. And then I think in game 2, depending on the adjustment that these teams are going to make, then you're going to have a better sense of exactly what's going to happen. Now, I know it's a popular thing as analysts to say, okay, well, I think this team is going to win. So I'm going to give you guys kind of a generic, okay, I think the Clippers are going to win, right? But that's really without any data, because how these two teams match up in the regular season is going to be quite different in the playoffs, because in the playoffs you can game plan a lot better. You can, after a game, you can come back, make adjustments, try things, and see what's going to work and what's not going to work. I think if you're going into the playoffs, most people would have thought that the Utah Jazz was going to beat the Clippers, and look how that ended. The Jazz were only able to win 2 games in that series, and 2 of those games, and 2 of the losses that they got of the 4 were without the Clippers' best player. So I think it's people, and I think we just like to say, okay, who this is going to win. But to be quite honest with you, I would actually need to sit down and watch the game and see how these two teams play each other. Then I'm going to get a better sense of exactly how this series is going to play out. However, I do think the Clippers have an opportunity to steal this game, given that the fact that this may be the only game in this series, at least in the first 2 or 3 games, where there's going to be a level playing field, given the fact that Chris Paul is not going to be a factor in this game, and because he's not going to play, and that's going to be a major loss for the Phoenix Suns. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. And I think the Clippers do have a possibility to steal game 1. But as I said before and many times in the past, I'm not a fortune teller, so I don't know. I think these two teams match up pretty well. The Suns had a top 10. They're one of the top 10 rated defenses in the league, as well as the Clippers, and they're one of the top offenses in the league, as well as the Clippers. But the Clippers were the best 3-point shooting team, best free throw shooting team as well. So, and one of the most efficient teams as far as top in field goal percentage in the NBA. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting series. And I think the Clippers definitely have a chance to steal game 1, but I think we just have to wait and see what ultimately happens. So what I want to know from you guys is, do you think the Clippers are able to steal game 1, or do you think, listen, the Suns are going to be able to hold on to game 1 and win game 1 at home, even without Chris Paul? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro, wishing you guys an amazing day, and catch you guys on the next episode.